Started off as a PG podcast, but then Devin just kept on dropping shits and fucks, and now...
That's right. We are live.
The ghost faced himself, Brandon Panev.
This isn't like the start of last season when it was just, it looked like the Canucks were just a beer league team not playing defense at all. And just before Chris goes, no, I'm kidding, Chris, you can actually go now.
No, hold on.
Oh, we had to give more time for coming on late. So.
I still had, hold on. All right. Chris go, and then I got something else to say at the end.
So, an elf and a midget in 2 back-to-back games. Yeah, he's definitely on a friendship tour for sure.
Saying, oh yeah, I'm okay with him being, the 6'7" defenseman. No! He is a AHL defenseman right now.
Look, Shonky, don't mind Devin, okay? We all struggle with Devin, so you know.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome on this beautiful Monday night in both Alberta and British Columbia to the Shifts and Pucks podcast. Of course, you can follow us on Twitter at Shifts and Pucks, Facebook.com Shifts and Pucks, YouTube.com Shifts and Pucks, Twitch.com Shifts and Pucks. Subscribe wherever you get your audio. Hit that like button, hit that follow button, hit that subscribe button, as I mentioned, and as well check us out on the Area 51 Sports Network, as we are, as of this point, a little bit under about 18 hours away or so from free agency frenzy in the National Hockey League. That's on Wednesday. And, of course, we are previewing this from the Flames perspective. We'll be doing a Canucks perspective tomorrow. We might get into a Canucks-Flames controversy that I set ablaze, or I set, pun intended, a flame on Twitter later here as well. But we'll talk about that. Joining us, hello, Sean. How are you?
Hello, Kevin. I'm doing all right. It's nice and warm here in Calgary, so I just got off work, and my work was a little bit of a sauna, so it's been... yeah, we're getting... It's also Stampede, too, so everyone's having a good time.
I forgot about that.
Even Kevin, who's not here, is having a good time.
Yeah,
not being a Stampede.
I'm not going to lie. Not my favorite thing of being a former Calgarian. But hello, Dan Stevenson, Fireside Podcast. How are you doing?
Hi, guys. Good. Thanks for having me on again.
Thanks for coming on. Thanks for joining us. And making his debut for the first time, skating down the ice. During warm-ups, we walked away. We let him skate around the rink a little bit. Noah Adler from FlamesNation joining us.
Is that why we're starting a couple minutes late? We had to let Noah do his lap?
We had to Noah do his lap.
Gentlemen, how are we doing?
We are, well, it's hot times outside, and it's hot time inside the Flames market. How is that for the blend there? Just well done. I'm a professional. And weather hot outside, Stampede going on. Did anyone get a Slurpee today, by the way?
No, but I was certainly out in the scorching hot heat. Like it was absolutely like blazing outside. Like I was sweating like all day long.
No, fair. The reason I'm asking is because today is 7-Eleven day, and you can get a free Slurpee. So,
I remember at one point they did $5 for whatever container you could fill, and I saw some guy bring in a kiddie pool, and I thought, who needs that much Slurpee?
True.
That's kind of disgusting.
It is a little bit. There's an amount of Slurpee you should have, and this amount that you should not, and there we go. And that's good to blend in. So let's start with the elephant in the room. And of course, the big question, nothing really can move forward without this with the Calgary Flames. And it's all about Johnny Gaudreau. Johnny is, of course, we have until 9:00 Eastern tomorrow to have that extra 8 years. 8 years and whatever the contract is. Otherwise, it's 7 years with the Flames or whatever team he decides to go to. Mm-hmm. Let's give Noah the first shot. Noah, how are you feeling about where the Calgary Flames are at, where Johnny Gaudreau is at? Where are you feeling? What is your percentage that Johnny Gaudreau is staying with the Flames or going?
Well, I want to say about maybe 2 weeks ago, it was 85-15, but that certainly I think has changed to 50-50 because it's just like the closer we get, and when the fact that there's no contract, the more concerned you start to get. Despite the things that you've heard from Brad Shalivin and, the Flames camp as a whole.
Fair. Dan, how are you feeling?
Like Noah, every day that goes by, I'm less and less confident. At this point, I don't think the 8 years gets done. I think I'm about 50% confident Johnny comes back if he doesn't get a better offer. Like, I think Calgary is now going to be his sort of like, when we all went to prom and you had that if we don't get a date, the two of us will go together. We're going to be his backup prom date. It's going to be, New Jersey and Philly can't afford me. I'll go back to Calgary.
Sean, you're the outside observer. What are you at?
Oh, I think he's testing. I think he wants to see what's out there. And I think he wants to, see if New Jersey or Philly can bring him home. I think that's what he's waiting for. And
coming off 100 plus, season, 100 plus point season, he's never going to get more than he would now. So now's the time to do that test.
And I think when you look at how the season ended, and I wonder if he thinks that he's not sold on exactly where this team is. Because I think if he was, if he wants to win and all that, he would have signed already.
Okay, let me ask this question. I was thinking about this, and I'm going to toss it out there. If the Flames beat the Oilers at hockey, the
just
game we're talking
existing, in one game or all the games?
If the Flames won the series against the Edmonton Oilers and advanced to the conference finals, thank you for making me be specific with you here. Does this contract negotiation with both Johnny and Matthew Tkachuk become easier?
I think so.
I would probably say yes to an extent, because if they make the conference final or even the Stanley Cup final, like they're signing those contracts like within a second.
I don't know that it does. I don't know that Johnny's issue is an on-ice issue. I mean, the Flames made big progress. Remember the season before, they didn't make the playoffs. This year they made it to the second round. I think, you can see that progression. It's not like we're trying to get Johnny to buy in that, hey, we're in the playoffs again. He just got married. His wife is pregnant.
Yeah.
He's going to be not Johnny Hockey, but Papa Hockey in a couple months. Like, I don't know that this is an on-ice issue with the Calgary Flames. I think this might be a family issue and an off-ice issue, and that now that we have a baby, where do we want to set those roots? Because it is going to be a 7 or 8 year deal.
Yeah, like I think for the entirety of these whole conversations, like money has not been the issue for Johnny Gaudreau.
No.
Like, it's certainly been family as to where he wants to be because they have a baby that's expected, and he got married last summer. So 100%, it's about where he wants to raise his family. And I mean, if he wants to be closer to his own family in that sense, well, then
and
all
her
the power
family
to you.
Too.
Yeah.
What do we call her? Mrs. Hockey's family?
Mrs. Hockey, yeah. I just think everything would have been so much easier if you beat the Oilers. Like, I think the Flames would have been probably more willing. I mean, I don't know what the reported offer is 9.5. If you were to believe all the reports, and there's no reason for me not to. But to me, I just think beating Edmonton, the Flames management, Flames ownership would have said, okay, that's worth $1 million in and of itself. We could toss 10.5 at him and not feel like we have a problem with that.
On the flip side, though, Kev, I mean, okay, so they didn't beat the Oilers, but what team that did make it further than us would have the cap room to bring him in? Like, I think if you look at the teams that have cap room, Calgary's still the best option if you're going for a winner.
I'm going to tell you something, Dan, Sean, and Noah. I think that you are all underestimating the Seattle Kraken. I think they are.
No.
Hear me out.
No.
Hear me out. Hear me out. because they are. Let's listen to what I have to say before you're like, this guy's dumb. Hear me out. I'm not saying that they're going to become a contender, but what they do have, they have cap space, which a lot of teams don't have. They also are in a position that after the first month of their start, they were pretty much irrelevant in that market. They were like, that's no more of that because this team was so terrible. They've got an opportunity here with the Seahawks that are not going to be a good team next year. They've got also basketball is coming. The NBA is coming. And when the NBA comes, they're going to be really popular. They've got the cap space to make a run at a couple of players. And in order to be relevant in that market, they're going to need a star forward. And I do think that the Kraken are going to be a serious contender for Johnny Gaudreau.
Sure, but if I'm Johnny, am I confident locking up for 7 years with an unproven commodity?
Yep.
That's the question. I mean, we're all assuming we know what Johnny wants, but
when you said the Kraken are going to be good, it reminded me of flashbacks to the Atlanta Thrashers days and crappy expansion teams.
There's some good pieces there. They've got. I mean, Shane Wright is not going to be there this year, but Matty Beniers, I think, is going to be there.
So could we all agree that he's going to get maximum years? I mean, we can argue about the dollars, but he's going to get 7 years.
He's going to get 7 years.
He's going to get term, and he's going to get the life-changing money regardless.
Exactly. So if that's the case, I don't see any reason why, until they prove that they can do it, and we don't think Kevin's crazy, that he says, you know what, I'm willing to take 7 years, moving even further away from the East Coast on an unproven commodity.
If it was about money, and with it not being the 8 years, are they going to throw basically 10.85 at him to make up for that to anyone?
Well, I think the maximum we were talking about before you came on, Sean, you can do 15% of the cap, I think, is the maximum per year. So that'd be a $12.3 million max contract. So
that'd be around David's term.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe in Kevin's scenario, they do 12.3 for 2 years, but I think after that, he's not going to maintain a 100-point pace. Like, this is time to sign big and get that money.
Yeah, I don't think I mean,
especially if he's on the Kraken, he's not going to maintain a 115-point pace.
Like, if he's not on this team, Johnny, like I don't see it either. Where I think he repeats 100 points without the guys around him, or even without the coach.
So you sign big money in Seattle for 2 years, and then you're making what, $7 million after that? That's a huge step down.
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys have eliminated Seattle. I'll still keep them a little bit in there because I think they can throw some money at them. The other options that are out there, New Jersey. Apparently, if this is the coast, if this is about family, we'll go east. New Jersey.
I think he wants to.
Devils have cap space.
The Devils have cap space, and I guess it depends what his priority is in the East. I think the Devils are going to take a couple years to contend. So if he's willing to wait for that and for them to find that piece to play with them, I think, yeah, you sign long-term and you say, I'm here for life. I'm a Devil. I can see it. But I guess it depends if he wants to, go for that win now, or if he's willing to play a long game while they develop around him.
Well, let's see here, because the 4 teams within Johnny's proximity in the East Coast are the Rangers, the Islanders, the Flyers, and the Devils. Which one are you looking to go to
Sabres?
That's close to winning?
Matt Murray wasn't going to go there.
Guys, if we're entertaining the Kraken, we got to entertain the Sabres.
There's one more team I'm going to toss in there that I think has a shot. Just from the East, Pittsburgh. I would not be surprised if Pittsburgh takes a run at
Pittsburgh's interesting because their guys are aging. Sorry, Sean. Their guys are aging. I don't think they want to go through the rebuild. If you could toss Johnny in there if they can bring Malkin and Crosby back, you've got an interesting line for a couple of years until those guys sail off into the sunset.
As long as you have Sidney Crosby in your team, you're not rebuilding.
Yeah, they've got about $15 million in projected cap space now, but it sounds like they're going to be signing Ricard Raquel. Not Callie Yarncroc there, Kev. Ricard Raquel. They are different players.
If you're signing Yarncroc for Raquel money, he's very fortunate. He must have some blackmail on you.
That's going to take away that, so they're going to have about sort of 10. So that
any other team in the group that Noah gave us would have to make a move to bring him in, and I wonder if Calgary loses him, could they become the beneficiary of said move by taking on? I mean, yes, it's a free agent, but could we almost become a clearinghouse for whatever they've got to move to do it? If let's say it's Philly, or I could honestly see the Rangers taking a shot at him. They think they're a contender, but they'd have to move a lot of cap to do it. And you might be able to get something good back.
That literally, Dan, like the Rangers are literally the dark horse that I've been telling people that don't count them out yet in the Johnny Gaudreau sweepstakes.
Yeah, no, I agree. No, I think they've got about 10 million in cap space, which I think you could get it done for 10. You'd be just under, but I mean, even if you're the Flames and you just need a body after that, they've got, some bodies that I would happily take from them.
Like Capco, or even Alexei Lafreniere. Or
I'm even thinking a guy like Barclay Goodrow, who I think moves way down the lineup at that point. He's making 3.5, and just bringing him in as a serviceable NHL body for a 6 just to clear him some cap space.
Right.
Okay, so how does the marketing work then? So we don't have Gaudreau, but we have Gaudreau. Is that what happens?
Gaudreau hockey.
This is a multilingual country. Maybe we can convince people it's the French spelling, the same guy. Give him number 13, and we're good.
Play him with Blake Coleman. Reunite them.
Yeah. You thought the last guy was good. This guy's really good, Rowe.
I mean, the one advantage that I would say that Pittsburgh may have, like, I think Philadelphia is a dumpster fire. I don't know if Johnny's gonna. Like, if you're counting out the Kraken, I actually would put the Kraken ahead of the Flyers, considering what a dumpster fire the Flyers are.
We've said that about the Flyers a few times in history, and they always manage to turn it around. Not right away, but I think in 7 years they will find a way to turn that around.
I think a question I would add out there is, does Johnny Gaudreau want to play for John Tortorella?
That's true. But at the same time, Noah, when you're looking at a 7-year deal, you're probably going to play for more than one coach. I mean, you go to New Jersey and you could come in 3 years. Like, when you're signing a long-term deal, you're no longer getting to really dictate who you play for.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and Pittsburgh has the opportunity for Gaudreau to play with Crosby, which, maybe that's an appeal for a lot of players. And that might, the advantage would be maybe Pittsburgh doesn't have to go 7 for that. They could go 4 and offer him a little bit more money. They could go 4 and
11.
Yep.
Yeah.
And say, okay, yeah, but I'm playing with Crosby. So that's who
wouldn't want to turn that down?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's it. Yeah, you might be willing to take less, like you're saying, take more for a year, take a lesser term, get a couple rings, and then when it comes time to renew, at least you've got those rings that'll help your market value.
Yeah. So yeah, I still am at the 55%. Gaudreau is going to stay. We've seen it before. We've got Landeskog, as I said, Stamkos signed late. I guess, but I guess the question though here is from the Flames perspective. And there's a lot of people that have a different thing. And it was Matchsticks and Gasoline that put out the poll today. We put out a poll too. What's your walkaway number with Johnny Gaudreau? What's 10. 10 even?
10.5. 10.5. That's honestly the highest I'm willing to go. Like, I'm not willing to go anywhere above 10.5 million with Johnny Per.
I feel like it has to be under 10 for me if you're going 7 or 8 years.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of signing players to late 20s players to 7-8 year deals. I think that's you're pushing your luck on that a little bit too much, especially on the back end of those deals. So the only way it really works is if you're going to be competitive for the first 4 or 5 years of that deal.
Yeah.
And
we're not getting 10 million out of them 8 years from now.
I think it depends on the player, though. I would probably say. Depends on who's in the late 20s and depends on who you're signing. Like Nathan McKinnon, like in the next few years, it's going to be in his late 20s and he's going to be an unrestricted free agent. He's probably going to command like $15 million. But that's because Nathan McKinnon is in a different tier than Johnny Gaudreau is.
And on that too, Noah, you see guys who, they keep around for leadership and stuff. The fact Johnny has not really had an A on his jersey yet during his time here for any good length of time tells me there might be some of those sort of between the earpieces, as Sutter likes to say, that aren't there, that you're going to need more lack when he's in his 30s.
Indeed.
I don't think if you want this team to be competitive, I don't think you can go more than 10. I think that's the pitch to him too. Is if you want to be competitive, we got to bring your, the Robin to your Batman back, and we need money to do that.
Yeah, to me, this has been my philosophy. Like, I think Johnny Gaudreau. Yes, I know that people are a little frustrated with the fact that he's been the last minute guy. He's been the last minute shopper in his last deal, but I feel like Johnny's been patient. To me, with Matthew Tkachuk, this is the guy that has sort of portrayed himself. This is the guy with the A on his jersey. This is the guy that through a tantrum fit outburst during the bubble series against Dallas in the Edmonton press box. This is the guy that, he's the one that everybody is, he's supposed to be this team leader guy. If that's the guy, I think that needs to be taking the deal, not Johnny. Like that's why I'm willing to do 10.75, because I think Johnny has been a bit more patient. With Matthew, I don't have the same view of him, but I guess maybe I'll get you guys to respond to that, but I feel like Matthew's the guy that has to make the compromise.
I'll jump in on that one. Matthew's got one more year as an RFA. I think he's coming back either way. I don't think anyone's going to want to pay the 3 first-round picks for his qualifying offer. I think the Flames, if they do Gaudreau, will get him on a 1-year deal. I see him as a guy who is money motivated. And I think he wants to take a 1-year deal to walk him to UFA, and then he can go wherever he wants to. But he knows holding out is not going to do him much this season. So I'm expecting a 1-year deal for Tkachuk, walk himself to UFA, and then he can decide where he wants to go, whether that's St. Louis with Dad or whoever backs with the Brinks truck. That's my thought.
Yeah, I honestly like my whole philosophy with Tkachuk. It depends highly on what happens with Johnny, because whatever happens with Johnny, that's going to have a big impact as to what Matthew is going to want to do. Because if you look at Johnny,
or Noah's not here, or where Matthew's not here next year.
Well, I mean, I think it depends. Like if Johnny doesn't sign, I think that's going to really. There's no way that you can bring him back with that qualifying offer. You cannot let that that hanging over you for another season.
I don't know, but if Johnny's not here, I think Matthew then becomes your top guy, and you almost need to bring him back as a panicked plan B. If you lose your top 2 100-point guys, we got Lindholm, and who's your second line? Coleman and Mangiapane? Like you I think almost need to bring Tkachuk back for one, especially if you lose Johnny.
You don't. Okay, hold on. You do not think that you could get something for Matthew Tkachuk?
You could get a haul for him, based on the season that he had.
For sure, you could, but I don't know if I guess the question at that point becomes, if we lose Johnny, are we rebuilding? And if so, then yes. Move Tkachuk, get those young assets. But if the Flames still want to compete, I think you've got to keep Tkachuk and find another piece to put in there.
But for 1 year, when you know he's going to walk?
Get him for 1 year and trade him at the deadline.
Well, and that's why I say, too, you cannot let another potential big UFA let that hang over your heads again like that.
We talked about this before the show. Not everyone heard it, but I said to Noah and Kevin, this team has been terrible at upper-end asset management. What was the last top player we got market value for? We sold Iggy for pennies in the dollar, Gilmore for pennies in the dollar. Like every top player we have, you could even say Phaneuf pennies in the dollar. Like this team is not good at maximizing assets and getting maximum return for the top guys.
Well, that's why I'm confused by your position then, because wouldn't this... Like you're not going to get 3 first. No one's going to offer sheet Matthew Tkachuk. I agree with that. Not for 3 first-round picks, but at the very least,
just to clarify, if to offer sheet him, you're going to have to offer at his qualifying offer or better, which it would be in the not quite the top. Sorry about that. Not quite the top tier for the offer sheet. It's the second one, which is 2 firsts, a second, and a third.
Okay, but you're still. I don't think there's a team offer. I don't know if a team is going to do that, but
No.
like the chances are pretty slim.
So
But
Kevin, I guess when I'm saying I would keep him, that's because I think the Flames want to be contenders, and if they want to be contenders, they have to keep him. If they're willing to rebuild, sure, get rid of him.
Okay, then I'm going to ask a second question here. What in that Edmonton series proved to you that Matthew Tkachuk could lead this team to contendership?
I don't think he's going to lead it, but I think he could be part of a committee. I'm not strapping this to Matthew's back, but if the Flames think, let's say they think, well, we got Elias, we got him, we can go out and get, I don't know, Phil Forsberg and try to make a run of it. I think that this ownership looked at how much money they brought in 2 rounds of home games, and I think there's going to be a lot of pressure, especially after a year of half attendance, to try and make a go of maximizing their revenue.
I don't know. I personally, I don't know. I just don't think, as I've said, like, I just do not personally think if he takes a qualifying offer, you cannot let a possibility of another high marquee UFA of that caliber hang over your heads and possibly let him walk to free agency.
If that happens, Noah, you'd have to have the plan to deal him at the deadline.
Yeah. Not even just that, but full on tear it down to the studs.
And that's what I think they might do, is bring him back with the plan of moving him at the deadline, or bring him back so they control what they can move him for.
Right.
I don't know.
I think there's only so much value in the summer when everybody's cash strapped. I'm waiting for that team that maybe coming out of training camp loses a guy, is desperate, and Calgary says, hey, we can help you.
Could see that.
Yeah.
You can go over a little bit, but in the off season, but I think there's only really one team that would even entertain that, and that's Vegas, because they just seem to think they can do whatever they want.
What's cap space?
Yeah, cap space. Yeah.
You could almost say that they're rolling the dice and gambling on getting away with stuff.
Yeah, and you're seeing a lot this year of how many of good players not getting qualified by teams because they're afraid of the arbitration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think if I'm Tkachuk's agent, I would almost be telling him, we don't know what's going to happen with the cap next year. There are a lot of cash-strapped teams. Take Calgary's offer. At least you know where you're going. And then, work for that season to get those 100 points and control your own destiny after that, where teams might have more space.
Yeah, I guess I'm not comfortable with the rent of Tkachuk, but
to be fair, I think his dad was rented 3 times. I'd have to double check, but
Atlanta was one of them.
Yeah,
yep.
I know. I know. I guess to me,
good callback, Noah.
That's good call. Yeah, to me, I think after everything that we've talked about with Matthew Tkachuk, I think it's fair for the Flames fans to expect more from him. He wanted to be. I mean, we had a conversation about this guy being a captain of the team, and now all of a sudden we're like, well, give him a year and wish him well. Like, that's not, to me, that's not captain material. That's what bugs me about this.
But if you're saying you expect more from him, is this the year that Tree sits down with him and says, Johnny's gone, show us you can do it. Show us you can be that guy now.
Well, he had that opportunity against Edmonton to do something, and he didn't.
No, he did not. And he was very, besides game 1 where he was fighting everybody essentially on Dallas, like, he did nothing then after that.
What do you think the fan base would think here if in one off season Johnny's gone, Matthew's gone, and we start a rebuild? Like, I can't see this fan base.
I would be all for it. I would be incredibly happy if this team legitimately decided, you know what, we're actually legit going to suck for a few years, and we're gonna tank for guys like Connor Bedard. Like, I would be happy if the Flames did that, because it's finally a direction they're going.
If that's the case, no, it was rumored on the draft floor, and Kevin mentioned this earlier, that they were off for Tkachuk for the 2nd overall pick. Are you going to get better than potentially Shane Wright?
I mean, if that was actually what the deal was, then why didn't you take it?
Well, that's it.
I think that's the thing, is I don't think they're looking to rebuild. I think they're trying to build off.
I know it won't happen.
No, and that's where I'm going with my answers to Kevin's questions. I think the rebuild may be forced on them, but I think they're going to do what they can to remain a competitive team. If you look at this lineup, They want to be a competitive team.
And something I'll mention too is these were the exact same conversations we had late in Jerome's prime.
For sure.
Exact same conversations. And by the time they started to rebuild, it was completely too late. You lost value on what you could have gone back for Jerome.
Okay, well, that was the biggest issue there, was they didn't get anything for Jerome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what does Daryl Sutter want to go through a rebuild with this team? I mean,
there's no way he would do it.
Yeah,
he did not sign up to be that. They've got him for another season.
Yeah.
I think, guys, what's going to happen is the Flames are going to be, because of all these things, I think they're going to give it one more shot. Okay, Tkachuk's our top guy. Throw a guy in there. Well, it didn't work. Daryl's out of here. Now we rebuild. Like, I think they're going to, because of what they have, they're going to throw everything they got at it one more time if Johnny leaves.
I think one thing I should mention, too, is that if the team, well, let's say Gaudreau and Tkachuk were gone, I don't know, let's say tomorrow or Wednesday or something like that, for example. I strongly believe this team is in good position to start an actual rebuild if done properly.
I agree, but I don't know that appetite is there internally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I agree with Noah. You've got your goaltender of the future with Dustin Wolf.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a few good pieces up front with Pelche and Zary. You need to build up. You need to get some more good prospects in the pipeline on the blue line side of things, as well as continue just do that. But when you've got Dustin Wolf as your goaltender of the future, that's fantastic. Not to mention you've got Markstrom signed for a few more years.
Mm-hmm.
I think
you're not the Leafs trading for Matt Murray after trying to bring in Peter Mrazek last season.
And I think the biggest thing about a team rebuilding often that I see, they don't have the veterans for those young guys to learn from. If we look at this team and you're putting veterans like Sean mentioned with Backlund, with Coleman, with Lindholm, with the Foley, we've still got that core to insulate those guys. It's not fair for us to say, well, Johnny's out, Peltier is going to come in and save us. Like, you got to build him slowly. And we've got if we decide to do that, we've got the veterans to either trade for young assets or to help build those young players. I mean, I would love to see another young defenseman play with Tanev. I think he's done great things for Anderson.
Yeah.
I would agree.
Yeah. So, okay. So
I just don't think there's the appetite internally for that to happen.
Oh, that's basically like, that's known as the R word within Murray Edwards' head.
Yeah. Well, and I the other issue here is the arena, right?
Yeah.
That's the other, I mean, politically, it's easier to get that deal done if you have a winning team. A rebuilding team doesn't make it palatable necessarily, or a political need.
Well, I think even outside that, Kevin, when you're winning, you're making more money, right? Yeah. And that's what you need to build that arena.
Yeah.
And I think the Flames ownership is very excited to have 2 rounds of extra home revenue, plus all the extra beer, all the red lot, all that stuff. That I think there's that appetite now to just maximize that cash, especially after a year of half the dome.
But I think though, as much as that's true, that's the problem. That's ownership's biggest problem and that's why this franchise has been stuck in the middle of the pack for the last 30 plus years.
Though, Noah, on that, I think finally we don't have the meddling owner type. I think Ken King was often that meddling owner, and I feel like since Ken, resigned and then sadly later passed, I feel like Brad and his staff have been able to do what they need to do. And I think because of that, they could probably sell a rebuild at least to Murray if they needed to.
But one more thing on that. Would you trust Brad Treliving to do a rebuild?
When I look at the other available options for UFA GMs, I think he's got us this far. You got to at least let him see the first part of it through. I think if you lose your top 2 players, the GM that got you the closest you've been in a while, and Sutter, I think you're just at that point, you're losing way too much continuity.
I would agree.
Yeah, and it would really help if he would come out and say it as soon as possible too, because if you just let it, they go for it this year, this upcoming season and it doesn't work, and then you trickle into that, that's when you lose the confidence that he could be. I think
Tree is a very competent GM, and I think you can put him in a lot of scenarios. And from a guy coming from the Phoenix organization, or Phoenix, Arizona, whatever you want to call them, I think he is very capable of doing that rebuild.
Rebuild the first one, or the second one, or the third one of Arizona's. Which one are they on now?
Rebuild Chapter 2.
Yeah, yeah. The smaller arena.
And the other thing we have to realize,
Kevin, they like to call it
the
intimate era.
Yeah, yeah.
You've got Arizona and you got Chicago absolutely tanking.
I actually want to bring something up quickly on the Chicago rebuild. Do you guys think Patrick Kane or Jonathan Toews get traded this summer?
Oh, I think Kane does.
Yeah,
I think he'll want out. And I wouldn't be surprised if Seth Jones wants out too. Mm-hmm. Like, he came in and signed with them because they sold him on them competing, not trading away everything, not qualifying good players.
Mm-hmm.
So
yep.
I wouldn't be surprised if 2 of the 3 are gone and Taves is sort of just
one. And if you're, like Kevin said earlier, if you're Seattle and you want that top name guy, I think it might be more achievable than to get a Kane on a short-term deal than a Johnny on a 7-year deal.
Yeah, I also wonder if a bunch of those Eastern teams would be in on Patrick Kane, though, and
Rangers for sure.
Yeah,
I think who's in on him depends on the market. I don't see a lot of other top end talent being available, so I think if you want top end talent, you'll be in on Kane.
I think the Avs were close on Kane at the deadline, but the Blackhawks were not moving him at that point.
Yeah.
Oh, could you imagine? Oh my God.
But you know what was said earlier about
Unfair.
the Flames not trickling into a rebuild by Sean, I think that's going to be the keys. If they lose both those guys and they're willing to do it, they've got to come out and announce that. They can't do what I worry is going to happen and what I think will happen, honestly. One more year of trying to be competitive because of what they've got. Then they go, well, that didn't work. Now let's rebuild. And as was mentioned earlier, then they lose yet another top end asset. I think you've got to come in saying Johnny's gone. We got to reassess things, or as Brad likes to say, we got to go through the process, grab our Boston pizza and sit and go through the process and figure out what comes next and say, we are open for business. We're not sure what the next phase of the Calgary Flames is, but we're open for business and we're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. If anyone is interested in the 2024 prospects, if you want to go that far down, and
there's prospects other than Connor Bedard.
Well, yes, man.
I'll have to find some, Sean. There's 200 and some picks. So.
Well,
there's Connor Bedard and Connor's grandma at number 2.
Yeah, and then Connor's sister. But
2020, TJ Ginla will be available in a few years.
Yeah, there we go. Justin Poirier. This is 2024. Alexander Zetterberg, Alexei Dontsov, Tanner Howe are the top 4 right now for 2024.
Wow.
And if the Flames do the rebuild, when I look at their contracts, they have a lot of really attractive contracts. In that vein. I mean, if somebody wants our contracts, you're not trying to move an $8 million. If somebody could get, Elias Lindholm at us for less than 5, or Tyler Toffoli for 4.25, like if the Flames want to do this, they have a lot of really great movable deals.
Now, I want to mention this, Dan. You know what? Like, with all the talk that Tkachuk and Gaudreau have gone, like, it's gone to prove even more that Elias Lindholm is incredibly underrated.
I agree.
Yep.
No, I've said for a few years on our show, we finally found the center for Jerome.
Mm-hmm. You could have had him in 2002.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And I think that Elias is your setup guy. I think he's the guy that makes everybody look better with him. And he's never going to get the credit outside this market for that reason. I think he's sort of that, that silent guy. I mean, not that he's silent on the ice, but he's not the guy that takes the credit. He's there to make the other guys look good, move the puck to them. And I think he's a guy you got to keep around. But if we are going to rebuild, there's great value in moving him for less than $5 million.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean, and the issue I've always brought up is Elias's contract comes up in 2 years, and if you wanted to sign Gaudreau and Tkachuk for long term, that's a contract you have to look at and see how, because he's not going to be making $4 million. That's for damn sure.
Exactly. But even if they want to rebuild, I mean, if another GM calls me, I say, you know what, you want a top line center? Shop around. If you can find one for less than $5 million, take him. There isn't one.
Yeah.
And I don't think the Elias renewal is as bad as you think it is. If you look.
Hello.
For that point, I think the Flames could find a way to make Elias work, especially if they're successful.
Yeah. I mean, but still, I think it is an interesting contract. I mean, there's age issues. The question comes up here. I mean, if you're rebuilding, I mean, obviously you're not going with a cap. There's a lot of questions that come up with that.
For sure.
And I mean, if Elias Lindholm is now in the sulky conversation, I do think that notches him up in a pretty higher range in terms of a center too. So,
sure. But if
Johnny for crying out loud got sulky votes.
It's true. But I think if this team does rebuild, Kevin, they might say, let's keep him around and pay him the big money because we need that consistent top line center.
Well, I've already said I would pay Lindholm over Tkachuk.
Yeah, I would too.
I mean,
I definitely don't think Matthew Tkachuk is worth $10 million plus.
No, and the fact that Lindholm's making less than Monahan is sort of an odd salary distribution.
Yep. Okay, so I guess we're preparing for rebuild. That's what I'm hearing from everybody here. We're looking at a potential rebuild here.
Well, look, if Johnny resigns, then obviously the conversation is completely different when it's all.
And we're gonna have to come back and redo the whole show from the other angle. See you guys Wednesday.
Yeah, I mean, I think I still think it's a possibility. We'll have to see. I mean, I guess the other question is in terms of playing format, playing style, what will fit for Johnny? Does he, and maybe the other thing is and we haven't really, nobody's really talked about this. And I don't know, maybe in Calgary, maybe I'm out here and I'm missing it, but I don't feel this anger towards losing to the Oilers. Like, I don't feel this. Like, we lost to 5 games to the fucking Edmonton Oilers.
I was in the Saddle Dome the night they lost, walking down from the press box to ice level, and there was grown men crying. There was a lot of anger, but it's 6 weeks later? Like, we can't hang on to that. We're not the Oilers fans who, still pissed that Steve Smith kicked it in. Like, you got to get over it at some point.
No, but what I mean though is it's just, I feel like just from a player's perspective, like that's the other thing, I guess, with Johnny too is, and Michael Backlund talked about it at the end of season, like just letting that playoff failure sit with you. Like, that.
But we also haven't heard a lot from them to know one way or the other. They did their exit interviews and they left.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's not like we're seeing them, in the Stampede Parade, waving their fist, vowing revenge. Like, we haven't seen these guys, so we don't know how they feel. Right behind Kevin
that would
Costner.
Be funny.
We'll get you.
Yeah.
Although you know what, I would actually love
you darn
to see
kids
that.
And your rookie coach.
Yeah.
Right.
Go
like
ahead,
I think the anger's there, Kevin. I bet if we were flies on the wall during exit interviews, it was there. I think these guys know how to put on that face for the press on garbage bag day when they were assaulted with those questions. But I think as these guys sit at home stewing, sitting on their kayak or whatever they're doing, I think that anger is there. And I think Daryl Sutter will make sure that they remember that when they come back in September.
I guarantee you Daryl is going to make sure they remember that big time. And he's going to make sure that they never forget.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the one motivation that does change things a little bit for everybody. But we'll have to see.
Never forget Noah, even when he's retired, he'll pop up in the dressing room with a tablet and show them the footage and run away.
Yeah.
You cost me another cup.
Yeah. I lost to the Oilers. Damn it. That one guy. Yeah. Okay. Anything else on Johnny and Matthew? We didn't debate the Matthew Tkachuk for JT Miller thing. It just sounds like that's a no go for everybody involved.
Yeah, absolutely not.
Okay.
Canucks take that and run if it's offered
Well,
to them.
I think you have to ask yourself, if you're going to do that, what do the Flames want to be? If they're going to rebuild, I don't know how that helps them. I don't think JT Miller's the guy that helps with the rebuild. If it's a win now scenario, I don't know that helps them. So what are you getting out of that deal?
The way I would look at it is the only way that what that changes is you bring in someone who can be a center, and you can build your center depth a lot better that way. That's the one thing that trade would do. You can move Toffoli up to the top line with say you keep Johnny as well in this scenario, right? And then you got a Johnny Lindholm Toffoli line, and then you have Miller centering your second line, right? I think that's for me when I look at that. I think the Flames say no matter what, anyways. But when I look at that, and you're asking me what do the Flames get out of that, it shakes up the lineup to create more depth within it. Because then you move Backlund down to the third.
Backlund becomes a very expensive third line center at 5.3.
Yeah, but that third, it creates that depth, right? And I think that's something that really hurt the Flames in the
Yeah.
But like I said, I don't. Yeah, I think the Canucks would take that and run, and the Flames say no. So
at least 1-for-1. I could see it getting done, but I don't think you would do it 1-for-1.
No, I think the Flames will be asking for a
King's ransom.
A significant one more significant piece, and I think that would be too rich for the Canucks.
That's what we like to call being an Xbox GM on our show. Like that's the kind of thing that you do when you trick the AI. Yeah.
Quinn Hughes. We'll take Quinn Hughes, please.
Yeah. We'll take the older Elias Pettersson, not the new one.
Oh wait, sorry, we gave you the new one. Fine.
No, Ron.
you got to wonder what was happening there. Like, was one of their scouts on his phone, and who do we take? How about Pettersson? Oh, good idea. Oh wait, shit, I was looking at my 2014 list.
Yeah, that was hilarious. We'll get into the Canucks. We'll do the Canucks preview tomorrow.
If they play together, you can't have two E. Petterssons. So what does one guy wear on the back of his jersey? E. Pettersson? E. Pettersson 2?
It's Pettersson and E. Pettersson, I think, is what they're doing with it.
I want to hear the Canucks guys call that. Pettersson to Pettersson. Back to Pettersson.
Oh, I like it.
Shooting on... Then you got... Pettersson to Pettersson shooting on Cal Peterson.
Vancouver goal scored by Elias Pettersson, assisted by Elias Pettersson.
That has to happen, please.
That'd be hilarious.
It's also like we need the other Sebastian Aho to go play in Carolina.
Oh yeah.
I'm just waiting for the day there's some sort of disciplinary action, and Coach walks in and says, "One of you guys has to sit out tonight because you got suspended." Just. Yeah.
I volunteer.
Pick which one.
Says the new one.
Yeah. 2-minute penalty to Elias Pettersson. Well, you're playing worse tonight. Young Elias, go in there.
Yeah. That'll be fun times in Vancouver.
All right, but what? Honest question. In terms of just fun from the draft, was that the highlight, or was Bruce Boudreau meeting Kevin Owens the highlight?
Oh, Bruce beating Kevin Owens. That was hilarious.
Well, if we're gonna make a WWE reference, then the second Elias Pettersson needs to be Ezekiel Pettersson.
Yes! Oh.
Yeah. Yes, that's hilarious. Yeah. Dylan is never gonna let me go about this Callie Yarncroc thing. Look at this.
I mean, you said that Raquel and Yarncroc are the same player.
Okay, so I've made one mistake in my whole life, and we're just going to hold that to it. Okay.
That's what he does.
When Yarncroc's agent is trying to get him more money, he's going to play that clip. Kevin thinks they're the same player. I think you should pay them accordingly. Who?
Yeah.
Listeners podcast calls back in an hour.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'll take a cut of that. I guess, okay, so the other parts of this here, for moving on from Gaudreau and Tkachuk, there are two other issues on this team in terms of signing. They were both qualified, but you've got Andrew Mangiapane and Oliver Kylington to deal with. And I don't think these are going to be easy contract negotiations, whether you have Johnny Gaudreau and Matthew Tkachuk or not. First of all, I'm going to ask, who is the bigger priority now? Is it Kylington or Mangiapane?
Mangiapane.
I was saying Kylington, but with the uncertainty with Gaudreau, it's Mangiapane.
Easily.
Yeah.
The guy nearly had 30 goals this year.
The one thing that I'm still a little worried about, like, I would be, if Gaudreau was signed, I would say, like, I said Kylington is more of a priority than Mangiapane but if Gaudreau is gone, I think if that changes. But the one thing I will say, I'm concerned about what this Tanev injury is and what he's coming back as. That's the one caveat.
But I'm not sure that Kylington solves that. I mean, we've seen one good season in his career from Kylington. There's a guy who 2 years ago barely made the team. This year looked good, and after he got that big hit near the end, he regressed again. Like, I don't think that you can put all your eggs in the basket. If I was GM, I'd give him 1 year and say, do it again.
Fair, but where are you getting your defensive depth?
Michael Stone.
Oh, of course. Why do I forget about Michael Stone? He's just always there.
I think, Kevin, if you've got the money, especially if we lose Johnny, they might go out and sign a veteran defenseman. But I think there's also, there's a couple guys in the AHL team that are ready to move up there. Like, when I look at our top four, I'm not sure Kylington's in that top four next year. I think Mackey, you could get some depth from, maybe Pullman. There's enough sort of 30-plus-year-old free agents. I'm just not sold that Kylington is, from a guy who we've seen one good season for, I'm not sure that he's a priority. I would also love to go to ARB and have them figure out who a comparable is, because I can't think of a comparable. Last season I could, but what other defenseman has gone from barely making a roster to top four for 2/3 of the year? On a playoff contending team.
Brett Kulak?
But Kulak's been in the league a little longer.
And I would say Kulak didn't do that on a contending team either.
It would be tough.
So, yeah. And to me, if there's a team that says, hey, we want Kylington, I'd almost look at moving that deal. Like, I think there might be more value for the Flames in potential to somebody else, and maybe get a defenseman back or get some, capital they could flip for a defenseman back.
When I look at Mangiapane, though, it's like, what is Mangiapane? Is he a 30-goal scorer, or is he more of a 20-goal scorer? Because this is a massive jump from his 18 and 17 goal career highs to 35 this year, and that's the big one. And not to mention, he is going to be, because of that 35 goals, that's going to be quite the payday for him. And they've hardballed him before too.
I think we've seen his upper ceiling now. I think he's a good middle six winger. I think he's got the potential to be your second line winger. I don't think you say, well, Johnny's gone, he becomes your top line winger. I think he's probably worth 4.5, maybe 5 on a short-term deal, because he's a reliable piece. And even when he's not scoring, he's doing other things right. I can't remember the last time I looked at Mangiapane and said, wow, this guy's a liability, or he's not working. If he's not scoring, he's finding some other way to contribute.
See, and I don't know if Daryl Sutter fully agrees with you on that.
No, but Daryl Sutter's not signed the contract, or everyone would have a no move again.
Well, that's true.
Tree likes him, right? Tree likes him, and Tree signed the deal.
Only thing, please do not do if you decide to rebuild, don't make Daryl Sutter the GM. Please, in God heavens, do not do that.
I think Daryl
Brett Ritchie will have a no trade at that point.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Well, look at that number one line out there. It's Brett Ritchie, Milan Lucic, and
the inevitable Brett Ritchie.
And more I think about it too, I think what the priority should be Mangiapane, because you want to make sure that you don't go to ARB with him.
For sure.
Because if you go to ARB, he's going to get a lot. He's going to get over 6, probably pushing 7.
I would agree.
Because when you look at that, the comparison to the players that were scoring, that he's in. You've got 35 goals. Mitch Marner, Timo Meier. 36 goals was Mikko Rantanen. Now those are all big money contracts.
Yeah.
Could you trade him and get more than you should for him?
I think that ARB is scary. I mean, you're already seeing teams not qualify players because they're scared of the arbitration.
I think if you're
they are lower down, but
I think if you're going to get some for him, it's going to have to be a sign and trade. Get us a good number, and then we'll trade for him. But yeah, I agree with Sean. I don't think anyone wants to trade for him on speculation right now.
Yeah, that contract, he's going to get a lot of money if he reaches ARB.
But remember that ARB's only 1 year too. So I think if he gets to ARB, the Flames could find a way to keep him for 1 year. But again, then that becomes.
But it's the same risk as with Tkachuk, right? When you're letting him potentially walk to free agency afterwards.
Yeah, but I think, Noah, if he gets to ARB, I'd rather find a way to take the 1 year than let him walk at that point. I think if he goes to ARB, because those are your two options. You give him the 1 year ARB or he becomes a UFA. I think at that point you got to find a way to pay the ARB value and look at moving him.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if we lose the other two. Can you imagine we lose Johnny, Matthew, and Mangiapane in one off season?
Well,
after having one of the best regular seasons in franchise history, like you go from the highest of highs and then boom, you're back down the bottom.
I guess when I'm looking at these guys, I'm thinking, who do the Flames need to? Who is better than what's available to buy on free agent day? And I think you're going to be hard pressed to replace Mangiapane at the same number with a guy who can do the same. I think when I look at available defensemen in that same range, I mean, Kulak, Ryan Murray, Troy Stetcher, I think there's a number of guys you could probably find that you could slot in for Kylington's spot. But I think you're harder pressed to do that with Mangiapane.
Yeah, I would probably say too that both Gaudreau and Mangiapane are pretty irreplaceable players.
Yeah, I'm just trying to in my top of my head trying to see. I mean, I do agree with you on that. But I just think it's such an interesting thing because I feel like you can either overpay him. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I really like Andrew Mangiapane. I think it's great. He's got 35 goals, and hopefully he can keep it up.
I think though this GM has a tendency to overpay depth guys. I mean, I'd say Backlund's overpaid. I think we could all agree that as much as Derek Ryan was a good piece, he should not have been making 3. I think Tree has a tendency to pay good people who he knows are going to be reliable long term. And I don't think that Mangiapane is a guy that you're getting 50 goals out of. But I think Daryl, maybe not Daryl, but at least Brad are going to say, no, this is a guy that we know we've got year after year. He's reliable. He's durable. Let's pay for that durability.
Yeah. But I think it's going to be a tough. That's going to be a tough find. That's the only thing. And then I mean, yes. On one hand, yes, I think Connor Mackey is taking that step, but I think there has to be a conversation around. They're going to be very interested to see what Juuso Välimäki's camp is like.
That's what I was going to mention just now. Is that what the heck are they going to do with Juuso Välimäki? They have to figure out what they're going to do.
They're the same.
I think honestly,
Levy.
I think Välimäki and Dubé are two great trade chips for this team if they need to move.
Välimäki has no value though.
Yeah,
I don't know about that. I mean, if I look at how many times Pavel Brendel got traded on potential, I think there's somebody out there, maybe the Kraken, maybe somebody else says, you know what, this guy's got some potential. Let's, bring him in and see what we can do with him. I don't think anyone's trading for him to be their top,
6th or
top
7th
2
round pick. That's about it.
Yeah, Välimäki's been very injured prone. I just don't see how Välimäki still has good value at this point because the highest point that Välimäki's value was at was when you could have traded him for Mark Stone.
I agree.
And obviously the Flames did not decide to go down that road.
Yeah, and I guess I'm thinking again, looking at maximizing our asset, I think that the Flames, if they can get something for him, they should move him. I don't know that he's better than the other options here. Even if, the nice man in Buffalo will offer us a 6, take the 6. I think it's time to move on from him.
Yeah.
And in terms of Dubé, like why he scored 18 goals this past year.
He scored 18 goals, but when we look at, money's going to be tight here and he's making 2.3, I think that you could say, we could probably augment that with somebody cheaper. And I think that there might be some value there. I think Flames are going to be, trying to wring out every dollar they can get. And a guy who's got 2.3, I think you could say, we could put somebody else for $1 million in that role.
But maybe if you move on from Mangiapane, he can step up into that role. Can he?
But
take
he hasn't
another step
shown
and
us
be in
yet that he
20s?
can.
Well, he's got similar stats to like what Mangiapane had before his breakout.
But, the big difference I see there, Sean, is Mangiapane always, like I said earlier, to me, always finds a way to do the right thing. If he's not scoring, he'll move the puck. There's a lot of nights Dubé just looks lost. He floats around doing a little bit of nothing. And if I want to pay $2.3 million to a guy, I don't want to pay $2.3 million to a guy that could maybe do it 3/4 of the season. Like, I think they can spend that 2.3 better. And I think there might be some market value for Dubé. And I think if you want to move Valley, trade Dubé and Valley together. And I think someone will, want Dubé, and you throw in Valimaki as the extra piece. Because you bought in the first 20 minutes, you get a free defenseman.
I mean, Chicago might be in on that. They don't seem to want anything too expensive.
Like, I like Dubé, but I just think, again, if we're trying to wring out the money, I don't think he's worth 2.3 right now.
I mean, I guess it depends on who you're thinking is who would be who you're targeting in free agency here. They're cheap. I mean, there's Nino Niederreiter. I don't know how much he's going to come in. There's Vincent Trocheck. I think Andre Burakovsky's going to be available.
I even wonder if you fill that position internally. I think the Flames want to bring up at least one young player next year. I don't know if it's Pelletier. I don't know who it is, but I think, you could fill some of that 18. Let's call it, 10 of those 18 goals with somebody internally.
I mean, I guess the question then is, could Connor Zary do what Dylan Dubé could do?
I mean, I wouldn't bring Zary up yet. Zary had an injury-prone season this year. I think you got to leave him in the A for 1 year, but they're going to get a good look at these guys in the A being in the same building. I think that even Ruzicka, could he come in and fill that role? He looked good. Like, I think there's a number of options internally to, by committee, as they say, to fill that role for less.
There are a lot of players who did not get qualified that are solid players. You got Sonny Milano, Danton Heinen didn't get qualified.
The Stroms didn't get qualified.
Yeah,
all three of them are going to be UFAs now. Ryan Donato didn't get qualified from the Kraken. Like, there's players out there that you could potentially bring in to do that, but. Yeah, I think it all a lot of what happens with like who you're prioritizing bringing back and how your roster construction does go back to what happens with Johnny, what happens with Matthew,
for sure. And I think if we don't re-sign one of those guys, these are all moot points because we have the money. But I'm assuming the Flames fan in me's cross my fingers. We get Matthew done, we get Johnny done, and now they're trying to wring out dollars elsewhere.
And they're being shrewd,
that's when, Brad's checking under every cushion in the dome to see if he can find a dollar somebody left behind somewhere because he's going to need every cent he can find.
Yeah, I
mean, that's the kind of cap management where it's, do you bring, Sean Monahan back on Monday or Thursday to maximize your cap? Like, I think they're going to be so tight at that point, they're going to have to do a whole bunch of cap gymnastics.
We haven't heard any buyouts yet. So, but
I think when does that first period end?
First buyout window's closed, I believe.
Yeah, and you can only use the second buyout window if you have arbitration.
That's right. Yeah,
contracts, which the Flames might.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think they're I wonder if Monahan's done and will be on LTIR for the remaining year on his contract.
I mean, he's 27. He's terribly injury prone. I can't see another team want to take him on. If I was him, you know what? You made a bunch of money. You're injury prone. Just call it a career, take that money, and go do whatever comes next. I mean, it sucks, say, for a guy less than 30, but I don't think he's ever met his potential. I think, it's going to be a tough sell to bring him back anywhere near that money for a guy who's had wrist, knees, shoulders, everything in that song, head, shoulders, knees, and toes. They're all injured with him. Maybe you'll give him a league minimum and bring him back as your 13th forward. But even then, I think he's best just right off into the sunset. Let them buy him out. Do the team a favor for a team that's done you a lot. Do the team a favor, agree to the buyout, and get out of here. Or bring him back as a scout or as a special assistant to Daryl's brother, or whatever you want to give him for a special assistant to Chris Sutter, whatever you want to give him to keep him around.
Or you could, if Johnny signs somewhere else, you could trade him there. So
but who's going to have the cap for Johnny and him?
Take on
what you would do then is you would put him on their LTIR, and then you can do the cap flexibility that way.
But even then, even with the cap flexibility, you got to now convince the owner for a $5 million cheerleader. Like if I'm going to my owner saying, I just brought in Johnny, by the way, I still got to pay the guy. He's just not against the cap. I don't think any owner is saying, yeah, let's bring in a $5 million, sidekick who's not doing anything for us.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the conclusion here is hopefully Johnny gets signed. I think to me at a reasonable price, at the right price. I mean, I think if this gets done, it's going to be 10. And he's going to get the max. And I feel like we're still in this wait and see mode.
Can I throw a question out at you guys?
Yeah, go ahead.
If Johnny leaves and the Flames think they can make another run at it, which I think is the internal thought, who do you spend that money on free agency trying to replace him?
I don't know if it's a replacement necessarily, but Nazem Kadri.
I think there's only two names. I think it's either got to be Forsberg or Kadri. I think those are the only guys you could.
Forsberg resigned.
Forsberg resigned.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Yeah. So it's definitely Kadri for sure. Definitely. If I were to use them, if you can't bring back Johnny, and if you have to use that money on someone else, like Kadri, 100%.
I think Kadri, Noah, if you want to do it long term, if they think they got one more year to contend, I could even see him going after an older Giroux. Giroux's not your long term solution, but if they say we got one more year with Matthew, we got one more year with whoever, we're gonna get Mangiapane done for one more year after his qualifier. I could see them going after an older guy like Giroux or Bergeron or somebody to give you that top guy for 1 year. Maybe. I think Malkin at this point becomes more of a name.
I don't think Malkin would want to come to Calgary.
I think that becomes the Yager stunt more than a competitive player.
I almost could see Malkin start doing the Yager tour.
Is he also going to be followed around by fans with mullets?
I could see it. I don't think that I just, to be honest with you, I don't know if I am I like Nazem Kadri, but I think he's going to command far too much for me to be comfortable with. And
I think he's going to get the biggest pay jump in the free agency because he's the next best guy. And I think whoever loses out on the Johnny sweepstakes gives that money to Kadri.
I almost would be patient and see what becomes available in trade before I would go after a lot of this in free agency, because I think there's more valuable players that will be available in trade than there is.
Well, and that's exactly
an offer sheet.
And that's exactly it. I think whoever brings in Kadri or Johnny is going to have shed some salary. And if Calgary now all of a sudden has cap room, you might be able to work a deal to take some of that back for Dubé, for Valimaki, for whatever. And I think we might be able to bring some in for very little in return.
Maybe I'll throw. We've had this discussion here. I'll just throw it out here because we're just throwing names out. Yeah, because I know that FlamesNation, shameless plug, Noah, put this name on the trade target. Jesse Puljujärvi. Do you throw an offer sheet at him?
I don't want to give up the asset. If he was a UFA,
I think he'd be a great fit on the bums in the middle six. So I would give him maybe, because what was his contract just this year? It was, what was it?
He was his cap hit was 1.175, and he made 1.45.
Do you go higher than 2 for him?
No, I don't think anywhere higher than 2.
Like if I'm going higher than 2, I'd almost rather look at guys like Nemesnikov.
And even then, I think you're getting Nemesnikov and players like that of that ilk probably. Yeah, and you're even if you are paying that much, you're not giving up a second or third round pick.
Exactly. Sean, you and Kevin had mentioned earlier the Matthew Tkachuk for JT Miller. If you want to do something like that and you just want 2 guys with a change of scenery, I think the best way to go might be Tkachuk for Laine. Trade an RFA for an RFA who just need different scenery.
Oh my goodness.
Oh.
I'm not saying I'd do it, but if you're just trying to move the asset somewhere else and get value for it, I could see a deal like that. Knowing Tree, I could see a deal like that taking place.
I would flat out say no of that if I were the Flames. I would hang up the phone.
There's no way the Flames should do that.
No way. There's no way the Flames should touch that.
I wouldn't. Yeah, I'm not saying they should do it, but if you're just it's an interesting debate. I think if you're just looking for 2 guys to change scenery.
He's a right. He is a right shot guy who can play both wings. He was a point per game player this past year.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the stats line, very similar player on paper, right?
Mm-hmm.
Winger can play both sides, both 24 years old. Like, and the question becomes: is Laine the issue, or is his teams that he's played on been the issue? I would be curious to see what you get from Patrick Laine under Daryl Sutter. I'm not saying I do the deal, but it's an interesting discussion.
Who says no? Dubé for Puljujärvi 1-for-1.
I would do that.
I wouldn't.
Actually, I probably wouldn't do it 1-for-1. I'd expect Edmonton to probably send some back at that point. But yeah, I could see it happening.
I still struggle. I know analytics. The analytics folks love them. I cannot get past 6 goals playing with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl.
Yeah.
I can't pass that. It's not sitting with me.
But I think, Kevin, you're bringing him in. You're not bringing him in to be that guy, though. You're not bringing him in to play on the top line. You're bringing him in to play on the bottom 6. And in that case, 6 goals is probably acceptable.
Smart. I think that I watched situations with him that I just didn't see a smart player. And I'm not saying that Dylan Dubé is the smartest hockey player out there. I don't know. If I was to take Jesse Puljujärvi, I would take it in the same way that the Colorado picked up Nikushin, just for something, a low-risk draft pick, mid-round pick, and I'll take it. He
signed with them, though. They didn't give up any assets for him.
Right. I think the big question in Noah's scenario is, what do the Flames do with the rest of the cap? And we might be able to say, okay, let's move the 2.3 for Dubé to Edmonton for $1 million, and then what do they do with the other $1 million? I think, Noah, that completes your equation. Is okay, so we're willing to put up with, as Kevin's saying, maybe lesser production from Puljujärvi, but we also then spent $1 million on such and such a guy. Again, I think if they do that, it's the first of a couple chess moves.
Yeah, and I think, if you're bringing in someone like a Puljujärvi, you want him to be basically what Dylan Dubé is anyways, a middle 6 player.
Yeah.
Those analytics that he has good analytics on, it reminds me a lot of Blake Coleman in terms of people that you have people out there who are just screaming that he's better than what he is, but you put him higher up in the lineup and he doesn't produce at the level that you need him to produce at to be higher up in the lineup. And that's not he's still a good he still is a good player and he should have some value, but it's not to the level that I think a lot of those full bore analytic people are.
And I think if you put Puljujarvi in the bottom six, you're not looking at him as a scorer. I'd be looking at him as the puck mover at that point. And I think maybe redefining his role a little bit might help him get more points as well.
And by the way, you know what? Why this is actually a really interesting debate is because when you look at their careers, they have the same points per game, goals per game, and assists per game rates. Both of them are like exact the same.
No, I think you and I might be the only guys that like Puljujarvi as a potential Flame. But
yes, yeah, I think he would fit in very well in the middle six.
I think it makes sense if he was a UFA. But if he with an RFA, how are you? What are you spending to acquire him?
Well, I like Noah's idea. I think if you spend Dubé for him, and maybe it's Dubé for him and a pick or something, I think you're maybe doing a fourth or a fifth, or something conditional there of, if Edmonton makes it and whatever. I could see something like that happening, and I think again that's a good value for both teams. Calgary shed some salary. I think Edmonton gets something they need there. As much as I like it, I'm still an old school Flames fan. I hate trading with the Oilers. Like I remember the first time they broke the trade embargo after 20 years, and we got Steve Staios, and I'm like, really? The first trade we made with the Oilers, and we got Staios? Like,
yeah. And then the last one, they had a conditional pick in there. The world ended.
Yeah.
Well, let's be honest. That trade was a landslide for the Flames, though.
And don't mention conditional pick with the Flames to an Oilers fan. Trust me, I've done it. They lose their minds.
I actually saw
because of that. Because it was like NHL had to decide on that whole conditional on that the Neil Lucic trade.
No, I actually saw a guy at the Dome in the last round, and he was wearing an Oilers jersey that said conditional pick on it. I said to the guy, I said, wow, you spend $100 for that?
Let me toss one more name out just for fun. William Nylander.
I like him as a player. I would trade for William Nylander if he became available, but at what cost as well?
Well, that's my question. I think Nylander could fit here, but I think for whatever return you'd have to give up for him, he's no longer worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's not like the Leafs can take on Tkachuk. They don't have the cap space for that either.
Oh, hey, you want Tkachuk? Give us Matthews.
Yeah, I mean, that's to do what Sean said. That's the kind of thing where you need a third team as a clearinghouse, and everybody's got to get their taste. Like, I think, and we've had this discussion on our show a lot with guys like that. Like Noah said, what cost, and whatever the cost is, I don't want to pay it because we're not going to come out on the right side of that trade.
Yeah.
And I mean, Nylander's making 7. Like, if you could do, and you're not going to do a straight, Tkachuk for Nylander. That would be maybe the only thing you could do there. But yeah, I just for whatever cost it is, we're not going to have anything left.
What about Tkachuk for Marner?
They're not doing that.
Yeah, no.
And again, if I'm bringing in 10.9 million, I mean, at that point, I could see that, Noah, if Johnny doesn't come back and they were panicking. Like maybe they get something done there. But again, you're going to need to move your whole second line.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
It sort of reminds me of, I think, last year when they brought in on the blue line, when they brought in Big Z. I think that was a panic because they lost. I think it's like, oh, we lost Gio. We're panicking. We're going to give this guy some big money. And that's one thing I hope they don't do this year. It's like, oh, we lost Johnny. I hope we don't just panic spend.
Yeah, because that's the worst thing you can possibly do.
Exactly. And I really think if we were a fly on the wall, I think that's how Zadorov became a Flame, is he was a panic acquisition.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I agree with you. And I think maybe we'll see what happens. We probably should do it. We should do a recap show on Wednesday and get everybody together to see what happens. Because I think there's gonna be lots of interesting things that happen. I mean, where Johnny goes, where
I don't know that Wednesday's the day. I think if you really want to look at that, I think it's going to take a couple more days for some of these guys to find homes.
Yeah. It's not going to be all done on Tuesday, Wednesday. But
I'd say Kadri. I'd say Johnny, Kadri, Malkin. Some of those guys. I think some of those guys will be the first to go off the board.
Yeah. But if you want to look at the totality of where this Flames roster ended up, I don't see Yarncroke going on that day. I don't see Goodbranson finding a home that day. I don't see, if you really want to
I think you're bringing Goodbranson back.
I think so, too.
I think,
especially with Tanev's injury, Daryl's going to want.
If the Flames bring him back, he'll come back that day. If he's going somewhere else, I don't think he gets signed that day.
Yeah.
Does Trevor Lewis come back?
No.
I
kind of hope so, but I don't know.
I don't think so. Personally.
Daryl likes to dance with the devil he knows, and I could see at league minimum Lewis being a good number 13. I don't know. I would look at him as my top 12. I think he maybe played his way out of that, but I think as a 13, he'd be serviceable.
Yeah. I league minimum. I don't think.
I've never liked the idea of a young guy being the 13th guy. If you want a young guy like Godden, put him in the lineup where he's not going to develop. Either AHL or NHL, he's got to play. So I've always liked the idea of bringing in those crusty old guys, you can rely on as your number 13.
My only thing with that, though, is there's a lot of RFAs that you could probably get on some really cheap prove-it money.
For sure.
That I think would be more effective than Trevor Lewis. But it's what Daryl, I think can they play what Daryl Sutter wants to play?
Okay, so let me give you a scenario then, Kevin. Do you sign Lewis so you've got him, and if you get somebody else as an RFA, no one's going to take Lewis on waivers on. Do you float him down and give him the C for the Calgary Heat? He's the kind of guy I think could be a great mentor for young guys.
Okay, if we're gonna go with what the AHL team is. It's got to be the Wranglers, though, right?
I say the Cowboys is better.
Well, if you follow Mike Gold's reporting, I guess the Flames just renewed the Wranglers domain name, so he think that's going to be the name. To me, if you got the trademark, you buy the domain. That's what I've always told my clients.
Yeah.
Whatever they're called, does somebody find the Scorch outfit laying in a basement somewhere in Stockton and bring it to Calgary?
Yeah.
Good old
Did he even make it to Stockton?
Sean,
no, he died.
I'll tell you right now. I'm doing some research into this. I am trying to figure out where Scorch is now, and I think I have a lead on the costume. I'm not 100% sure, but if it turns out the way I think it is, you'll see me at Halloween parties dressed as Scorch because I think I may be able to acquire that costume for cheap if it's where I think it is.
That's awesome.
But I got to practice the Scorch dance, right?
Yeah. This is what I would consider doing with Trevor Lewis. Let's see where Jacob Pelche is. Let's see what the young guys are at, and see if you can convince Trevor Lewis to take a PTO.
Well, even if you sign Trevor Lewis to a league minimum deal, you can just send him down to the A.
Yeah.
I think you always need a couple vets in the A. You need, as I call it, you can't have the blind leading the blind. You can have a bunch of guys saying, this is how we make the NHL if you've never made the NHL. I think a guy with a ring you can send down there, put the C on him and say, this guy will show us the way to the promised land, especially after a good season for the Heat. I think you need that. I mean, Byron Frage is not the guy to lead you to the promised land. So that's what I would do. I'd sign him to a league minimum, and whether he's here or there, I think even Kevin, if he comes on a PTO, he's not going to sign for more than that out of a PTO. So yeah, I'd bring him back and find a home for him later.
Well, the advantage with Trevor Lewis too is he would be a guy that you would bring up and keep a younger guy down to continue to develop.
Yeah.
So you would keep Connor Zary down the whole time.
And he's also one of those guys that if you need a call up, you can rely on him. If somebody's hurt, you can bring him up for 2 games and he's not going to hurt you. Is he going to help you? Maybe not, but he's not going to be a liability.
Yeah. I mean, maybe some of these guys in development camp that they brought in for a tryout, they sign as well. I don't know what the situation is there. Maybe.
Yeah, even then though, I mean, if they sign them, I don't think any of those guys, you still got to fill out a roster. You've still got some space in Kansas if you want to send a guy down there. Like I think even if they sign a tryout guy, those guys are always projects.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair.
I'm waiting for the next failed European free agent. Remember we had that guy who didn't speak English, and then we had the guy who looks like Wolfcastle McBain from The Simpsons. Like I'm just waiting for the next failed UFA tryout. What was his name? David Wolf.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And then there was Roman Shekmanik.
That's the guy I'm thinking about. Yeah, the guy who came here and couldn't speak English.
Yeah. Oh, the Jay Feaster years.
That's bad.
Yeah. Hot Take Hockey. Haven't seen him in a while. He's being sarcastic. He's asking the Flames to trade for Justin Holl. He does not
I don't
think
know why he wants the Leafs to trade his favorite defenseman.
Yeah, that's very weird, man. Like, are you becoming a Flames fan? I don't know.
That's David Wolf, the former Flames player. We're going to play some hockey.
Speaking of which, I wanted to toss this conversation out before we go. All three of you are in Calgary. I'm out here near a beach. But somehow the Calgary the Calgary Flames and the Calgary Hitmen are scheduled to play all of their games at the Saddle Dome this year. I'm wondering how that's going to work. And
because you also throw in the Roughnecks.
Yeah, and then you got the Calgary Roughnecks, and when the McMahon Stadium collapses, the Labor Day Classic might have to be at the Saddle Dome.
If McMahon, honestly, Kevin, if McMahon collapses, you've got a great building outdoors that's used for 10 days.
Yeah, that's true.
I would just move the stamps over there.
I don't know why that hasn't been done yet, to be honest with you.
I've said that for a while. There's no room to put a new football stadium. I would move them to the grandstand, send them on the road for the 10 days the Stampede is here. You're not going to find another spot to put a football stadium. And what's the last thing you guys went to at the grandstand outside Stampede? It's not used for anything. Monster trucks use it. That's it.
They had a beer event there a couple years ago.
And you know what? They can still do that because the Stamps play one day a week.
Yeah. But in terms of the hockey teams, we had the Hitmen playing games out of Seven Chiefs
and Seven Chiefs this year. I think the interesting thing is that's where rookie camp is. That's where the dev camp is right now. It's always been at Win Sports, so I think that's an interesting affiliation change.
Because I think we'll see games for both the AHL team and the Hitmen outside of the Dome. I think we'll see Seven Chiefs, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see Winsport as well.
So the reason I don't think we'll see it for the AHL team is the AHL and the NHL have minimum standards of arena quality. That's written into your franchise agreement. And I don't think you can move the AHL team over to Seven Chiefs because of that. There's a lot of things they require off the ice in terms of, eating space, workout space, the Seven Chiefs doesn't have. Yeah. So I think, and also, I mean, it's amazing how much an NHL team travels with. And if you saw what the team traveled to China with, it was amazing. I can't see them just moving skate sharpener and stuff across town for one day and bring them back. Like, I think if you're going to do it, the NHL and the AHL teams have permanent homes of the Dome, and it's the Hitmen that you float between the two because they don't have all the same setup. But, I mean, let's be honest here. As Calgarians, less and less is coming to the Saddle Dome. A lot of things that are coming to the Saddle Dome will probably happen in the new BMO Center in terms of some of the, conferences and expos and stuff. I think Calgary Flames organization, the Calgary Sports Entertainment Corporation, want to maximize their dollars, and they're going to run 3 hockey teams out of the Dome to make up for lost concert revenue, lost whatever else. And I think they're going to try and run the NHL, the AHL, and as many WHL games, there's 41 WHL home games, as they possibly can out of the Dome, and pretty much just leave the ice down all year. I think if there's one team that'll be displaced, it'll be the Roughnecks, and they may end up Seven Chiefs because most of their games are Friday, Saturday, as well as the AHL games.
Yeah, I agree.
That's my hot take. But I think if you look at the AHL and NHL minimum standards for arena, Seven Chiefs doesn't meet it.
Neither would Max Bell, and neither would Winsport.
You know, I've said this before. I think Max Bell, if you look at it geographically, is the best alternative because of where it is. It's easy to get to, all that, but you can't. I mean, it's a dump inside there, and Calgary is balking at building one arena. I can't say want to build one and renovate another one.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what the arena situation is, but go ahead, Sean.
They desperately need to revamp Max Bell because it could be that medium-sized arena that they could have the Hitmen and the AHL team there. And because my biggest issue when I go to Hitmen games is it feels cavernous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just they sell out like maybe once or twice a year.
Yeah.
It's the teddy bear toss game and then maybe one other. I went and watched Connor Bedard play, and they weren't selling out, right?
And Sean, I think nobody wants to drive to Winsport to watch that Hitmen game.
Yeah,
that is the one problem with
and there's no transit. I mean, I hate to say it, a lot of people go to hockey games to drink. You don't want them driving home. There's really no good transit option from either Sutina or from Winsport. There is from Max Bell, but nobody wants to go watch a game in Max Bell. Like it's this catch-22. This is where, in hindsight, and I won't get political, but in hindsight, if we would have known about COVID and how many people needed work, I think we wish that we would have had the 2026 Olympic bid because a whole bunch of people would be working to build us a whole bunch more buildings.
And in that bid, there was going to be a medium-sized arena.
There was. And we're the only city of our size in North America without two buildings.
Yeah. I think it's strange to me. I mean, I think it's tough right now. If you wanted the World Juniors in Calgary right now, it's really tough to do because you don't have that second rank, right?
Yeah,
not really. Edmonton and Red Deer split, but
I think we have comparable facilities to Red Deer, and I think if you got the World Juniors, it would end up being at Winsport because again, it has the off ice, it has the track, it has all that. It might get full, but they have a really nice rink there. They have one really nice rink that's Olympic sized. I think they could do the World Juniors.
Yeah, TSN gonna want that at Winsport though.
I don't know that Winsport is any better for TV than the Red Deer Arena.
You want the gold medal game at Winsport?
Oh no, the gold medal game would still be at whatever the big arena in Calgary is, whether it's the Dome or something else. The other thing is I don't think Calgary's getting another World Juniors until we get a new arena.
Yeah.
We're not getting a lot of things. We're not going to get an NHL draft. We're not going to get an NHL All-Star game. We're not going to get the World Juniors. We're hindered in a lot of ways.
Not going to get the Grey Cup because McMahon's a dump. Yeah, we definitely need to the whole in terms of
you're going to drive down the QE2. You're going to be in Edmonton, the city of champions, and Calgary, the city of mediocrity. We're okay. Just stay with what we got. Be a middling playoff team. Not get a Grey Cup.
We definitely need to upgrade the sports infrastructure in this city for sure.
But I think everyone has been asking me where will the teams play, and to me, you have no choice for the NHL and HL team. I mean, they need the facilities the Dome offers. And I think as the guy that's, spent the most time at ice level of all of us, there's a lot of stuff you don't see in the Dome that, there's the players have their workout room, the dressing rooms, all the off-ice fitness stuff, the video room, the players lounge. Like, you can't move that stuff, nor do they want to. I think the Hitmen may be the odd man out. I guess the real question here, and I don't know if we want to debate this, do the Hitmen end up folding in a couple of years because the AHL eats their lunch? Like in terms of that price point, I don't know what AHL tickets are going to cost, but if they can run the AHL at the same ticket price point as the Hitmen, I think you might have to relocate the Hitmen in 4 years.
Well, I don't think it'll be a quote unquote fold. I think it might be a move out to one of the burbs, similar to what the Giants did.
Even then, I don't know that the Flames organization will want that. I think it's sell it and somebody relocates it somewhere else.
Well, it might be a sale, but it will be. I think it will still be a Calgary.
But again, Sean, where do you put them? There's no other building in Airdrie and anywhere to put that team. So I think unless you
what's going on Okotoks?
They don't have a. Let's call it. Let's say you need a 3,000 seat arena for the Hitmen. Okotoks doesn't have that. The best you could do is take New Horizons Mall. Nobody's going to flood it and put them in there.
Okay. But I mean, I'm just asking, but that's a legitimate. I mean,
there are potentials. Like Okotoks could do it, Airdrie could do it, but I don't know that those cities want to put the money into a building, and I'm not sure an ownership group wants to. So there's definitely potential, but as of now, those cities, from what I can tell, have no plans for that in their city planning.
Question marks for sure, but that's 4 or 5 years away at this point.
And I think you would need, Sean, you would need that owner commitment to say, okay, we're going to buy them and move them in 18 months. And that might then spur the development.
The Passon Centennial Arena in Okotoks is about 1,500 seats with a 2,000 person capacity. So it's still not 3,000, but it's still doable. But like you said, like who's going to want to do that?
Well, Noah, last time I was in there, the facilities were equivalent to, and I haven't been there in a few years, but it was like watching a game at Max Bell. Like it felt like a big, kids arena. My brother was in there. He said, this feels like I'm watching, our uncle play at Family Leisure Center, just bigger. Like I don't know that it's a WHL building where you're taking the kids. I mean, they make a lot of money at the WHL from selling hot dogs and souvenirs. And I'm not sure you have all that infrastructure you need to make that work.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
So I mean, that's a bigger question.
Where would you move to Hitman though if they were to leave?
I don't think there's any market in Alberta. I think you'd have to move them somewhere, Saskatchewan or Manitoba. But I mean, at that point, it's not moving them; it's the Flames selling them, and it's not their problem. So, like, I can't. I think, and from what I heard, the Flames explored this for the Heat. They didn't know if they wanted to move them to Calgary or a related area, but anywhere you put them, you'd kill the Dub team. Put them in Red Deer, Dub team's gone. Put them in Lethbridge, Dub team's gone. So I think it was moving to Calgary. Now we own pretty much all the sports in this city. And I just think that there might be – I'm going to be curious to see what the ticket price is. I don't know if they can do the AHL for as cheap as the Hitmen or if it becomes that middle option. There's a lot of people that can't afford to go see the Flames but might be able to do the Flames at half the cost.
In terms of moving to Hitman, I wonder if Vernon becomes a possibility or Penticton. Somewhere in the Okanagan, I'm thinking.
Could be. I mean, you've already got a bunch of teams there, and when they've tried to put other teams in that region, like the Ice, they didn't do that well. So I think they probably want to stay out of that BC region.
But the Kootenays is a bit further away from the Okanagan, so maybe that could survive.
But the other thing is that in the winter in the Okanagan, you don't have the same amount of influx of population there. Yeah. I don't think it's there right now. They've got Penticton has the V's, and you'd kill the V's if you go there.
Yeah, that's true.
That's why I think if it is, it's a move out to the burbs more than anything else.
Yeah,
because if you go, and it probably south, like, is my guess, because you've got so many. The suburbia down there is gigantic, and then you still have some small towns down there that you could draw from, and it becomes less of a arduous trek into downtown Calgary to go watch the Hitmen play.
Yeah, and I think, like we said, it's going to have to be a coordinated dance of getting the right pieces done at the right time. The only other place in Alberta I could see them would be Sylvan Lake, and they just built a big baseball facility to put a baseball team in. It's a big hockey town. I could see them moving the team there and then having a regional rival with Red Deer, have one Sutter coach in Red Deer, one coach in Sylvan, battle of the Sutters. There's always two of them that are employed. That's the only other Alberta city I could see that might be able to support WHL hockey. It's a big hockey town, and Red Deer is a bit of a drive, especially in the winter, to go watch hockey there. And when they had Craft Hockey Day in Canada, they had a pretty nice arena built.
Mm-hmm. That'll be interesting. Okay, so yeah, I'm curious how that's going to work out. That's, I guess, the other thing.
My big question, and we don't have to go down this road, but if they're no longer in Calgary, can they be the Hitmen? If they're no longer attached to the Excellence of Execution, do you have to rename them?
I hope not. I love that.
The Sylvan Lake Brewers.
There you go. Well, I mean, if they're going to call their baseball team the Gulls, they'd probably come up with some lame name like the Sylvan Lake Waves. or the Sylvan Lakers.
Oh,
No.
There was one exhibition game between the Flames and the Oilers in Sylvan Lake a few years ago, and it was packed. So, like, yeah, I mean, I'm obviously not buying the team and moving them, but it's the only other Alberta market I could see. And there's a lot more people living out there now. I know a bunch of people that moved out there during COVID saying, hey, I want to live somewhere close enough to Calgary and come in for work, but a nice sleepy town. It's the only area left that I think is maybe big enough. Too big for an AJHL team, not big enough for an NHL team or an AHL team.
The smallest arena in the WHL right now is Wayne Fleming Arena in Winnipeg at 1,400.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's plans for a bigger arena for the ice there. And then you've got...
From what I remember, that was supposed to be a temporary home. It was just put them in Winnipeg until they could find another buyer. I think Seattle still is a dub team, and I can see that team getting choked out. Like, I can see there being sort of an influx of teams for sale in the next few years.
Then you've got Prince Albert at just under 2,600. And Swift Current at just under 2,900. So
a friend of mine had an interesting idea when we discussed this last week. He said Humboldt, after the Bronco, or after their bus crash there, the Broncos, they had a big arena upgrade, and he wonders if you could see somebody bring them in and sort of, be willing to fund a big arena update there to bring them to Humboldt. But I think that's way too far out of the way for bus trips in the dub.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's that issue too.
I mean, you'd probably get a lot of media attention putting the team there and rebuilding the hockey community and all that, but I don't know that anybody wants to take a bus to Humboldt in January.
Yeah,
no chance. Yeah, no chance.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be because we haven't really had bus rides in a couple of years out that way with the Western team, so that will be interesting this year for sure. Well, should we leave it here? Is there anything else, or we just go back to praying?
Before we go, why don't we leave on a non-praying note? What does everybody think the AHL team is going to be named?
I wanted to be named the Cowboys, but I think when it's all said and done, when you see the Wranglers admin basically, voted in, it's going to be probably the Wranglers.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Wranglers, and I hope they bring back that old logo a little bit with some updating with it.
Mm-hmm. So if they do that, and I've always liked it when the AHL team has a flame-like name. I like that sort of tie-in, like the Heat.
Yeah.
But if they're going to do that, if you remember, my favorite Flames farm team logo was the Omaha Knights.
Yes.
The plume of the knight had the flaming C. So if they're going to do the Wranglers, I'd love to see the flaming C back cut out of the W and make that sort of the depression, the W.
I agree.
If they're going to do some of that, like I think there needs to be that tie-in.
Throw a Blasty on it somewhere.
Yeah, or the one thing I like about the Knights though, they would probably have a completely different kit. Like it's so easy for AHL teams just wear the same colors as the NHL team. But I think if they're going to do, like you guys said, the Cowboys or even the Wranglers, it gives them something. Even if they don't go with the old jersey, it gives them something to sort of refresh and come up with their own colors. Maybe it's red and silver instead of red and yellow. I'm going to go the way I hope it is, which is something to do with the Flames name. And I think it's going to be something like the Heat or the Blaze or something like that.
I'm going to go with the Wranglers. If they bought that, I think that's what they're going to go with.
Well, remember that they own the trademark, right? Because they used it. So they might just be protecting their trademark. For those that don't know what I was talking about, this was the Omaha Exorbitant Knights logo. And if you look at the plume of the
That's
knight,
a good logo.
It's the flaming C. So I love how, even though it wasn't the Flames, it tied you in. You could see by looking at it, this is the Flames farm team.
Yeah, I see your point. I have a hunch they're going to try to do something Western because it's so Calgary of them to do. But
I mean, they've called the farm team the Flames a few times, but you can't get away with two Calgary Flames, can you?
The Colorado Flames.
It would save you money. Just have both teams wear the flaming C, same kit. You get called up, bring your jersey, walk down the hall. It makes it easy and cheap. If I remember, maybe I'm wrong, but didn't the St. John's Flames wear the flaming C for at least 1 year?
Let's see here.
I believe they did. Let's go ask Jeeves. I believe that the St. John's Flames for at least 1 year wore the Flaming Sea. And I don't know if it's just because they were cheap or what, but
they did.
They did.
They did. In the pedestal years and when they switched to the V striped jerseys.
Yep. It was definitely during the pedestal years.
Yep.
So I mean, if
St. John's
if St. John's is wearing a Flaming Sea, I don't know, maybe they're silly enough to do it again.
I like their old logo too. That's a nice one.
The dragon one?
Sick.
Yeah.
The dragon. That is unbelievable.
Well, we'll see. We won't put money on this, but I think in my heart, I think Noah's right. It's going to be the Wranglers, but I don't want it to be. I want there to be that name tie-in. I always like it when they do that.
Fair. All right, let's leave it there. So we'll start with Noah. Noah, tell us what Flames Nation is up to, what you're up to.
Well, obviously, we've got the podcast going on with Shane at Flash and Pike as well. And then we've got some great articles from Patty Steinberg, Mike Gould, and the rest of the gang. And then obviously the Shout Down in Flames podcast with me and Princey. And potentially at some point we will hop on this week to talk about what the fate is of Johnny Gaudreau and what might happen from here on out.
Dan, what do you've got going
on? Fireside Chat during the season is a weekly podcast. We've been in our off season just like the Flames have. I doubt we will talk this week about Gaudreau. We're going to let everybody else do immediate reactions, and we're probably going to come back a little bit later with some more calculated, measured, and sort of seeing how things play out around that before we do anything. But I would imagine probably early August we'll be back for our either celebration or freak out in what's next episode. So firesidechat.ca, you can subscribe there to get an email when our next episode comes out. Follow us on your favorite social media platform at Fireside Podcast on Twitter, facebook.com/firesidechat. We're on Instagram, firesidechat_podcast. But I would say go into our website, either subscribe to the RSS feed or get an email or subscribe to your favorite podcatcher. We are everywhere that fine podcasts are found. So however you subscribe to podcasts, find us there and you'll get notified when the next episode comes out.
Sean, what's going on with us tomorrow?
Yeah, we'll be back tomorrow to be doing exactly this, but viewing it from the Canucks side of things. And because we got to JT Miller, the trade rumors never end with him. And we'll go from there.
You'll explore all 31 possibilities for trade?
Yes.
You think that you think there's not enough angles to talk about a JT Miller trade? You have not seen the Vancouver market yet.
Anyway. And if you need more than 31, we could say what happens if the Atlanta Thrashers come back and they select him in their expansion draft.
Hey, you never know. Never know. It might take that long for JT Miller to be traded. So you never.
So you're saying by the time Phoenix gets relocated, he might get traded.
Yeah. It's. I'm going to get into it tomorrow. I'll get into it tomorrow. I actually don't have a rant.
I'll grab my popcorn and I'll watch tomorrow. Usually I wouldn't spend that much time on Vancouver content, but
here we go. All right. Okay, and then Sean, how do we follow you?
I am BeardyConnect03 on Twitter.
Chris Schneid's SCHNEIDZ. Tyler TNOBLE. They will be both here tomorrow joining us. Devin still wandering around in his robe. Gordhouse09 on Twitter. He's
I don't even think about that.
I didn't get permission for him, but I was going to put. If I did, I'm telling you, I would have posted a picture of him up joining us because it's just a fantastic fucking picture.
I don't think it is. Your definition of fantastic and mine are very different, I think, Kevin.
I think we're saying the same thing, but different. And
this week the robe after this feet pictures, and then no one's watching.
Yeah. Well, we already lost a viewer because anyway. I am KVOLE, Shifts and Pucks, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch. Subscribe wherever you get around. As well as on the Area 51 Sports Network. Noah, great job. Dan, great job. Sean, great job. Thanks everybody, and we'll talk to you all very soon. Bye for now. Pray for Johnny.